Are you a referodontist? And by that I mean, are you referring everything out? Endo, referral pad. Wisdom tooth, refer it out. You need an implant? We'll give you a referral. Do you have a problem in your office right now that you just can't seem to get past? Maybe it's a staffing issue, maybe a system that's inefficient, maybe mistakes that just keep happening no matter what you do. All those procedures together, they brought in probably an extra 20 to 25K a month. And when you multiply that out over a year, that's pretty good. That's the kind of monthly boost that can cover a lot of major life expenses. You know, your practice payment, your house payment, the extra stuff you want to do can come from this little extra on top. That implant, it had reimbursed more than the dozen of fillings that I had done over all the other appointments that morning, and it took literally 15 minutes. That early phase really matters, and that's why live mentorship, in my opinion, is the difference between I learned it and this is actually something I do confidently in my practice. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Lifestyle Practice Podcast. I am Steve Graaff, happy to be your host today. Really glad you guys are joining with me. I have a question for you today. Are you a referodontist? And by that I mean, are you referring everything out? Endo, referral pad. Wisdom tooth, refer it out. You need an implant? We'll give you a referral. Now, look, I totally understand referring is appropriate, and our specialist colleagues, they are fantastic. But sometimes it's just kind of a bummer. I feel for dentists. There's so many hardworking, talented dentists out there. They go through school, they buy a practice, build a team, and then the most productive treatment that comes through the door, they basically just triage. They diagnose it. They explain it to the patients, what's going on and what they need. They tee it all up, and then they just send it to a specialist. So today I want to talk about specialty procedures, and more specifically, how improving your skills here can increase your production and your freedom. Let me be clear about what I'm not saying as well, okay? I'm not saying you have to become a super dentist and do everything yourself. I'm not saying specialty procedures are more important than leadership, communication, or systems in your office. And I'm definitely not saying that you should fly to San Diego for CE as a distraction from the hard work you really need to face up to in your practice. But I am saying if you keep more of these procedures in-house, it's a great way to serve your patients, to increase your production, and I should add, you do it in less time and without necessarily needing more new patients. The earlier you make that investment in yourself, the more you benefit for the rest of your career. So who should be doing this? I'll say first, if your schedule is slow, if your schedule isn't full and marketing isn't bringing in enough patients yet, this can definitely help you maximize the patients that you already have. Instead of just waiting for more people, you're creating opportunities from the patients already in your chair. Another reason that this may be helpful is if you're burnt out with doing the same old dentistry all the time. General dentistry can be very repetitive. Adding a new clinical skill brings variety, growth, and sometimes it can make practicing feel exciting again. Also, if your schedule is already full, even if you're doing well, if you want to increase your productivity per unit of your time worked, specialty procedures are a great way to do that. I'll share a little bit of my own experience. In my practice, most of my production was still just bread and butter general dentistry. But I did do a handful of specialty procedures pretty consistently. I probably did about 2 sets of wisdom teeth per week, a couple full mouth extractions per week. I would do my own basic endo from premolars forward, and then I would do a couple implants a month. So nothing extreme, but all those procedures together, they brought in probably an extra 20 to 25K a month. And when you multiply that out over a year, that's pretty good. That's the kind of monthly boost that can cover a lot of major life expenses. You know, your practice payment, your house payment, the extra stuff you want to do can come from this little extra on top. So how do you learn specialty procedures as a general dentist just doing general dentistry right now? Step 1 is pretty simple, and that is to commit. So I'm recording this around New Year's when people are making resolutions and their plans. I think it's really helpful when doing this in a professional area to pick one big focus that really makes you reach in this year. So one large, meaningful skill that you want to master. I had a couple of New Year calls with clients recently, and we discussed this. We discussed clinical growth in addition to other things and set goals to expand their skill set. One dentist is bringing implants into their practice this year. Another one is going to bring in sedation. And I would recommend the same approach for you. Narrow your focus and stretch yourself in one specific area. So what area should you pick? I would say if something excites you, start there. So if you're into cosmetics, ortho, veneers, whatever you love, goals are a lot easier when you're genuinely interested. If the idea of something is dreadful, it's very unlikely you're going to stick with it. So follow what interests you. If nothing really stands out particularly, I would recommend as a great starting point for a restorative practice to bring in endo and then surgery and implants. And there's a couple reasons why. First, when patients come in for a limited exam, they have an urgent problem, a toothache, an infection, they usually need one of two paths. They can save the tooth with endo, or they can remove and replace it. If you can offer one and eventually both of these options in-house, you get to keep almost all of these patients that are coming in under limiteds, and you get to keep all their work in your own practice. Endo has a super low overhead, almost costs nothing, and you can do these procedures as a part of your buildup in crown, so it fits in perfectly to everything you're already doing. Implants, they are one of the most high demand procedures in all dentistry right now, and their profit margin per time is just fantastic. I remember one day pretty vividly, this hit home for me. I had, I think maybe four or five, it was a lot of appointments in the morning where it was just fillings after fillings after fillings, and you know how tedious those are, kind of how hard they are in the back, how you're holding a solid position. So it was a long morning, and then the last appointment before lunch, I had an implant. I think it was spot number 4 or 5. I did the implant, and it took less than 15 minutes. And then at the end of the day, I realized that implant, it had reimbursed more than the dozen of fillings that I had done over all the other appointments that morning. And it took literally 15 minutes. So if you want to work smarter and not harder, save your back and make a lot more doing funner procedures, I think implants are a great way to go. So next step, after you've chosen your focus, whether it's one of those two I mentioned or something that interests you, I would recommend you invest in good CE. Put your money where your mouth is and really commit by investing financially in this. I believe it's very important. Don't do lecture-only CE. Don't even stop at, hands-on training with models. You need live patient training with a mentor over your shoulder. It is so difficult to transfer skills from a model or a PowerPoint to a real patient with no help or supervision behind you while your hygienists are waiting on you to come do a hygiene check. It's just super stressful. It's very unpredictable. I learned this myself. Early on, right when I got out of school, I invested heavily in a 6-month orthodontic bracket and wires program. And it was a solid education. I flew out to California, one weekend out of every month for 6 months. Got to talk with really smart orthodontists, but it was all on models. So, as much as I studied and as much as I learned, when I got back to my practice, doing those procedures on real patients, I just felt so slow. I felt unsure. It was extremely stressful, and I ended up just dreading those appointments. So eventually I just, after a couple of patients, I quit doing them. All that money and training went unused clinically. I compare that to how I approached implants, where I had a mentor. I watched his cases over his shoulder. Then he watched over my shoulder and assisted me while I was doing my first several. And that was enough to get me kind of out of the nest, so to speak, safely. So I could start doing a lot of my own basic implants, got a lot of repetition, and then confident just went straight up. So that early phase really matters. And that's why live mentorship, in my opinion, is the difference between I learned it and this is actually something I do confidently in my practice. So hopefully your CE is on live patients. You've done this procedure before with help. You're starting to feel more confident. Remember the simple rule of incremental progress. Your reps are going to bring competence. You don't want to jump to some extreme hard case, right? You want to expand your comfort envelope, so to speak, gradually. So, I've talked about endo. This means you're going to do all your own single canal endo. Once you feel very proficient and confident in that, go ahead and do premolar endo with 2 canals. After you've done a dozen of those, go ahead and move back to a first molar, right? Same idea with extractions. If you want to take out wisdom teeth, take out 20 second molars, doing a full flap, troughing, sectioning. Get really confident and comfortable in it, so your envelope of comfort has expanded, and then it's just very natural to do a very similar procedure, one tooth posterior. Same with implants, same with ortho, same with, cosmetics, whatever it may be. This is how you responsibly expand your skill set while still giving patients the quality care they deserve. We're not in school anymore. We can't just, take on the super hard cases because there's a professor there to bail us out. We need to learn more responsibly in private practice. And then I would just remind you, as a great motivation, to remember the math. If you do 2 root canals per week at average US fees, that's roughly $100,000 extra in production per year. If you do 1 implant per week, that's also roughly $100K. Aligners, probably 2 aligners cases a month, 1 smile makeover case or 2 per month. Just those kind of small, totally doable amounts of specialty procedures can bring in that much per year. So you don't need to immediately become, a renowned specialist. Just adding very modest amounts of these specialty procedures are going to have a massive difference over time. And remember, again, these are your patients. You're already doing their exams. You did the x-rays, the imaging, the diagnosis. You explained everything. But now instead of teeing it up for someone else, you just go ahead and do the procedure right there in the chair. Most dentists, they practice for decades. The average dentist actually retires in their 70s. Obviously, at TLP, we don't want you to have to work that long. But it makes the point. If you're going to be doing dentistry for potentially decades, then learning high-value skills earlier on pays off massively. It's like the time value of money. If you start sooner, the return is going to compound for the rest of your career. So to summarize, you don't have to be a specialist to do great in dentistry, but expanding your skill set gradually over time will help you take better care of your patients. It's certainly going to make treatment more convenient for them. It's going to greatly increase your production, and it's going to increase your freedom. Here's your simple roadmap. So remember, commit this year to 1 specialty skill. Pick the right procedure for your practice, something that interests you or something that flows well into your current procedure mix. And then invest in live patient mentorship. Start simple, build lots of reps, stay consistent, and then watch the long-term impact. If you want to discuss your practice, your treatment mix, how to improve production in a way that's going to give you more financial freedom, more time outside your practice, you know what to do. Reach out to us, Matt, Derek, or myself, Steve, at thelifestylepractice.com. Shoot us an email. We'd love to talk with you. Thanks for listening, and I hope you guys have an awesome week.